Welcome back to Firestone Forge. Today we're going to do something a little bit different. I had gotten a couple of deer hides a couple of months ago when hunting season was going, and I salted them and threw them in my freezer after I fleshed them. So this is my first time working, trying to make my own leather. I've worked leather before, I've sewn it and stuff like that, but that was already tanned. So I'm going to see about trying to do my own processes, brain tanning, and one hide I want to leave the hair on. But what I'm going to do now is I've got the one hide out in the back of my pickup, and I cut some saplings. I got 4 of these guys. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to build a frame, and I'm going to notch them together, and I'm going to tie them together as well, and then I'm going to tie the hide to it and let it dry out to turn to rawhide. And then from there I'm going to move on to other processes. So stick around, it's going to be interesting nonetheless.
So I went to the woods and cut down 4 saplings and brought them back to the shop. I end up trimming all the limbs and everything else off of them, and I measured them out to be about, I made 2 at 5 foot 6 inches and 2 at 6 foot 6 inches. I cut them at those lengths so that way there would be a rectangular shape, not a square, and that would give me plenty enough space in the center for the hide. I wanted to make sure that everything was going to fit, so I just kind of went with it. This is my first time doing it, so I figured, hey, what could go wrong? Might as well give it a try. So on the first branch I went down a couple inches and I cut a notch. And I'm marking the same size notch onto the second branch. I'm going to saw about halfway through, and then I'm going to use my wood chisel to knock the block out. Now, once I knocked the block out, I end up going back through with my Mora knife, and I cleaned up all the faces and everything else like that. I wanted to make sure that everything sat flush. Now, I just kind of show briefly here in a second how everything sits, and I end up making sure that everything fit kind of nice. So you see there's a little bit of a wobble. I went back through and cleaned that up with the Mora. I end up cutting 4 6-foot lengths of paracord, and I burnt the ends to make sure that everything wouldn't fray. I've got the 2 sticks at 5 foot 6 inches and 2 at 6 foot 6 inches. I'm going to start to set up the frame right here. Once I've got the frame set, I'm then going to go through and tie everything. So it's a little embarrassing to say, but I think there's only 3 knots I know how to successfully tie. I know how to tie my shoes, I know how to tie a trucker's hitch, and I know how to tie I think it's called an overhand knot where you tie it back on itself. I've successfully tied a clove hitch knot like twice. I should have prepared for this a little bit better by watching videos on how to tie knots, but I was in kind of a hurry. I wanted to get this thing going. I was excited to get the project started. Look on the bright side though, it ain't rocket science. If you can't figure it out, there's a problem. Here's a finished product of when I got it all done. So I punched a hole in each of the corners of the hide, then I tied a trucker's hitch to hang it up. On the top right, where we're looking at it right now, on the top right, I end up tying that on there just to kind of hold everything in place, and I wanted to get a snug fit with the top left. I later went back and tightened that side up real good. I also tied all 4 corners into place before I moved on. So once I had the corners in place, I went back through and I popped 5 more holes in the hide. 2 at the top, 2 at the sides, and then 1 at the very bottom. And I cut some notches into the frame to allow the lanyards, or I suppose we'd call them, to sit in there instead of sliding around. So I just did an overhand knot and now a trucker's hitch. So each piece of rope was about 4 foot long, I'd say. Just paracord. And now to put everything in place, I just pushed it right on through, looped it back on top of itself on the paracord, and then just went over and down through the notch that I made and into the trucker's hitch. Tightened it up until it felt nice. Again, just put the paracord through the hole, loop it back through itself through the loop. Make sure that everything's sitting nice. Put it through the notch, loop it in through the trucker's hitch, tighten everything up, and then once it's all good and tight, tie it off. It's really not that hard of a project. It was a lot of fun doing. Learning experience, to be sure.
Well, it's not perfect. Far from it, in fact, but for building my own frame and for stretching a hide for the first time, that's not bad. I mean, the more experience I get, the better it will be down the road. All of these, I built little notches there, so that way they would hold better and not slip around. Got the trucker's hitch going, just kind of looped it over there. And the best part is I can tighten it up as needs be, up and down. Maybe I'll make the next frame just a little bit wider so it gives me a little more room there, but not bad.
Thanks for hanging out. Check you next time.